Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Andrew and this is Alienware M15x, or something that was left from this laptop. Also, I want to say that this project was so unpredictable and full of surprises. Well, after I got this laptop, before I start with anything, first I connect my Dell charger, and the only thing that happened was the charger LED went off, and at this point I knew that something isn't good. A long story short, when I do in-depth check, I found that this laptop is heavily liquid damaged and heavily repaired without success. Also from the inside, there's no disk, together with the disk holder and the connector. No RAM, no BIOS battery, the motherboard is dead, and the whole laptop has a very few screws, and the case to some places is stick with glue, just enough to not fall apart. But after a long testing process, there is a good news. The display, the keyboard, the GPU, the CPU, the trackpad and some other parts are working. I mean, they're still alive, which is great for beginning. After I cross over a testing process, I order a new motherboard. I waited a little while for delivery. Then I got a package and I was so excited to make this laptop working. But the new motherboard comes as faulty. The new motherboard isn't working. These motherboards aren't new. These are refurbished, and something like this, it may happen. So I was a little bit disappointed, but again I crossed over a detailed checking process, and after some time of searching, I found that the problem isn't hard to fix it. The problem is coming from two controllers, the CQ16 and the keyboard controller. The CQ16 I got it from another motherboard, and the keyboard controller I got it from the old motherboard, which was in this laptop before. And after the small repairs, finally I got this machine working. However, I contacted the seller about this problem. He even offers a refund, or to send me another motherboard, but because all is working fine, isn't fair to request anything. But there is a catch here, and something you should know about these laptops. Some of these older Dell Alienware models request to connect all parts together before testing. I mean to usual base parts like the CPU, the GPU and the RAM, and you need to connect the display, the keyboard, and to some models even the trackpad. Otherwise, the laptop won't start, it will react like it is dead. Here is an example. If I disconnect the keyboard, this laptop won't start. Also, if the keyboard is not working, again the laptop will react like a dead. Even this may happen if the keyboard or some other parts aren't well connected to the motherboard. So, all needs to be right connected before testing. Now, after I got this laptop working, I start with a long disassembling process. And except all removable parts, I have to remove even those parts which are not removable. Because in this video, we're gonna make something different. Well, after I finish with disassembling, I move to the detailed cleaning process. And here, first I start with cleaning all the electronics. And first is the motherboard. Here I cross over a short cleaning process, just to remove traces of fingerprints that I made it before and some tiny dust. But in general, the motherboard is like a new one. After I clean the motherboard, I move to cleaning the GPU. Here, I have to be very careful while cleaning the GPU chip, because on the chip there are tiny components that are covered with a thermal paste. But the major problem is the GPU is heavily liquid damaged. Previously, I removed the rust and the other dirt because of testing. Otherwise, I may risk damaging some other parts. After I finish with cleaning the GPU, I move to cleaning the both cooling fans from dust and dirt. How you can see here, the dust over one of the radiators is like a carpet. In many cases, the reason why some laptops are overheating is this problem. The dust is stick pretty well to the radiator, and the fresh air cannot pass through and cool down the CPU or the GPU. Well, after I clean the cooling fan, I move to the keyboard. To clean the keyboard, I use two brushes. One is a soft and one is a very soft makeup brush. I use brushes to remove the dust from all around. And also, I used cotton buds and 96% isopropyl alcohol for in-depth cleaning, where I clean each key separately from dust and dirt. And this is the keyboard. The keyboard shines up again. But now I move to cleaning the display and all other electronics and cables from the case, and including the CD-ROM. When I'm on the CD-ROM, I want to tell a few words. The CD-ROM was pretty much corroded, but somehow I was able to clean it, and later when I test this laptop, the CD-ROM is working pretty fine. After I cross over cleaning all the electronics from this laptop, I move to cleaning the case. Here the case that has some electronics on it, which are non-removable, I clean it using 96% isopropyl alcohol. Also I use brushes and cotton buds. And carefully I clean any square millimeter. But also while cleaning, I check the parts, in case if I need to make some additional repairs. Now the case that is without any electronics, including the heatsink and the fan blades, I wash it using warm water and dish soap. Most of this process I've done it in a bathroom, and this is just to show you what I actually did. After I clean and wash the case, and after the case gets fully dry, I move to prepare the case for painting. So now, using a paper tape, I cover some parts that don't need to be painted, but also separate some parts because they're going to be in a different color. I have a few ideas about painting, but while working on this laptop, I've changed my mind and I've decided to make some unusual combination. Now, after I finished with taping, first I took a deep black spray, and with this spray I paint most of the parts. Also with this spray I create a fusion crust effect. That's something similar to some meteorite or some object that cross or fall through the atmosphere. And this effect is very easy to make, and this is how I do it. First, I paint the case normally, I mean just normal flat paint. After the case gets dry, again with black spray I start with creating small drops all over the case. I have done that with very gentle pressing the spray, because to create a low pressure, and while low pressure the spray won't blow the paint like under normal pressing, and it will create small drops that will fall all over the surface. Also, to get this effect I have to paint the case few times, but between each painting I waited until the paint gets fully dry. Usually that's about a half hour to an hour. The final paint is looking pretty cool, and it always looks different when you look from a different side or angle. But now I've decided to make something different. I took a gold spray. With a gold spray I paint some parts into a clear gold, and now to make some contrast. Over the other parts that I paint into a gold, I have done one experiment, and for that I use a transparent black spray. This spray is a mixture of black and transparent, and this type of sprays mostly are used to create some effects or shades. With this spray I create drops and dots all over some parts that I paint into a gold before. With this, the golden parts are less shiny, and there is a small optical illusion. It depends on which angle you're looking at. These dots sometimes are black, sometimes transparent, and sometimes look like water drops. Also with the gold spray over some parts of the case that I paint into a black, I created drops and dots. And this was very experimental, but the final result is very unusual and unique. Now, after I finished with painting, I left the case to completely dry, and later everything was ready for assembling. Well, now I start with a pretty long assembling process, and here first I start with sticking back all the parts that were not removable, but I removed it previously, and later I move to usual or standard assembling process, but also making some upgrades and some additional things.
'Cause darling, there is nothing right when all you seem to do is lie. Those days are gone. I'm walking tall while you're alone. When I think about the way we used to be, when I think about the things you took from me, I know that I am so much better, better off. When I look at what I've done, now that we're apart, when I look at what I've won, I've come so far. I know I'm so much better off, and baby, you don't belong. Your love was cold, heart made of stone, but I'm just fine. I'm gonna shine. I'm alright, alright, alright. I'm celebrating my liberation. I'm moving strong, I'm moving on. I'm alright, alright, alright. Might be shaken but not stirred. Just a lesson that I've learned. And so it goes. Tables turn and you're on your own. When I think about the way, when I think about the way we used to be, when I think about the things you took from me, I know that I am so much better, better off. When I look at what I've done, now that we're apart, when I look at what I've won, I've come so far. I know I'm so much better off, and baby, you don't belong. When I think about the way we used to be, when I think about the things you took from me, I know that I am so much better, better off. When I look at what I've done, now that we're apart, when I look at what I've won, I've come so far. I know I'm so much better.
Well, let's slow down and make the first upgrade. And the first upgrade is going to be the CPU. So instead of using i3 330M, I got i7 740QM. In this laptop, I can use something better than i7 740, but this CPU was only available that I can find in a very short period. Also, the i7 740QM isn't bad at all. This is a 4-cores, 8-thread CPU, and it's much better than the i3 330M. So the next upgrade is the RAM. From nothing, we're gonna place 8GB in total. Also 8GB is the maximum what this model supports. I know, this isn't much, but it's still okay for today's standards. After I placed the RAM, I moved to the BIOS battery. The old battery wasn't in the laptop, but because I don't have original battery, I have to make one. So I took a battery from another laptop, cables from another laptop, and I made one battery. I know, isn't something special, but all is working fine. And the final change is the disk. So here I'm gonna go with a single 480GB SSD. Also, this isn't much for today's standards, but it's okay to fit some data and some games. But also here I have to add disk connectors, because the old one is gone, and I used some disk holder from other laptop, which isn't fitting 100% right, but it's still okay, and it will do a great job. And as the last and the final thing, what I've done here is placing rubber feet from the bottom side. Originally, this model has a plastic feet, but the feet were broken, and here I go with the rubber feet. Why? I used rubber because rubber absorbs more vibrations that may come from the cooling fans or the CD-ROM. So using this laptop will be quieter. Well, after I finished with assembling and all modifications, I moved to the testing process. And here I've tried Windows 10 and Windows 7, and the both are working pretty fine. But suddenly, very unexpected things start to happen. The laptop sometimes is working fine, but sometimes it's very super laggy. Even I can't use basic things like a browser, or even I can't open a notepad. Well, again, I crossed over a detailed checking process, and I found that the problem is coming from the BIOS. But because the battery isn't working, I have to update the BIOS via USB, and I'm going to show the process to you. So to update the BIOS, I need a USB from 2 GB or less. Otherwise, the update may fail or it will not work. Personally, I'm using an old USB from 512 MB. Also, for this step, I need a tool called Rufus. So, to create a USB, first in Rufus, I format the USB as FAT or FAT32, and I choose MS-DOS instead of ISO image or any other options. Actually, here I need an MS-DOS to boot into the BIOS. Now, I extract the BIOS that I download from the official manufacturer's website. And after, I copy all the files directly to the USB. But also here, if I put unzipped exe or ISO file, that will not work. So I have to put all the files directly to the USB. Otherwise, will not work. After I place the BIOS to the USB, I reboot the laptop and I access in the boot menu, where I select the USB. Here, first I type dir, or the short term from directory, because to access in the USB and see all the files. And now, to start with the update, I type this command, fa.bat. So now, the BIOS needs to continue with the automatic update process. In my case, I have already done that. But after I update the BIOS, the things turns to a little bit better, but not all. Once again, I have to update the GPU or the video BIOS, which is a very similar process. And finally, the things turns to better, but not for long. I continue with testing and I start replaying some games, and then the screen went off. To be short, the GPU died. Previously, while cleaning the laptop, I noticed that the GPU is heavily liquid damaged and corroded around the chip and the memory. Long story short, I take out the GPU from the laptop and I take it to my friend who has more equipment. And there I re-clean the GPU, I have done a reball to the chip and to some of the memory models. And after these repairs, it was very obviously that the GPU won't last pretty long. And to make the GPU more stable, I have to make underclock. But however, in the end, I got this laptop working and I was able to play some games. The games aren't working pretty well and the FPS was pretty low. And after I make all these tests, I've decided to order another GPU. And for that I choose NVIDIA GTX 460M, which also is supported by this model. But I will mount this GPU after I will receive it. And after we cross over all these troubles and changes, this is the final result. Well, and a few more words about this laptop. This laptop, in this condition, is working just normally, for all things except for gaming. The Windows 7 and 10 are fully usable, and everything is working fine. I'm able to use all basic things, like working on something, some easy tasks, watching 440p videos as maximum, listening to music, and I can play some games, but with a very low FPS. But this is temporary, until I get the new GPU. Well, and this is all about this Alienware M15x. It's a bit old laptop, but still not to finish in a trash. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope this video will give ideas and inspiration to back in live some tech or even some other stuff and make it great again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.